The frozen wind cut through Emma Thorne's threadbare coat like a knife through butter as she stumbled along the mountain trail, each breath crystallizing in the bitter January air of 1878. She had been walking for 3 days now, ever since the stagecoach accident that had left her stranded in the Sierra Nevada mountains between California and Nevada. And the cold had seeped so deeply into her bones that she could no longer feel her fingers or toes. Her lips were blue, her dark hair matted with ice, and somewhere in the fog of her exhausted mind, she knew that if she stopped moving, she would never start again. The trail wound through towering pines heavy with snow, their branches creaking ominously in the wind. Emma's vision blurred as she put one foot in front of the other, mechanically, desperately. She had left Philadelphia 2 months ago to start a new life teaching school in Virginia City, Nevada, after her father's debts had forced the family to scatter. Her mother had remarried quickly, her sisters had gone to live with aunts, and Emma, at 22 years old, had decided to forge her own path westward. Now she wondered if that path would end here, frozen and alone on a mountain nobody would think to search. She heard the horse before she saw it, the steady clop of hooves on packed snow cutting through the howl of the wind. Emma tried to call out, but her voice came as barely a whisper, her throat too raw and cold to produce sound. She lifted one trembling hand, waving weakly, and then her legs simply gave out beneath her. She crumpled into the snow, darkness creeping at the edges of her vision. Strong hands grabbed her shoulders, lifting her. "Easy now, easy," a deep voice said, rough but gentle. "I have got you." Emma forced her eyes open and found herself staring into the weathered face of a man who looked to be in his mid-20s, with dark eyes that held both concern and determination. A thick beard covered his jaw, and snow clung to the brim of his black hat. He wore a heavy sheepskin coat and leather gloves, and behind him stood a sturdy bay horse laden with supplies. "Please," Emma managed to whisper. "Help." "That is what I am here to do," he said firmly. He pulled off one glove and pressed his bare hand to her cheek, his expression darkening. "You are freezing. We need to get you warm right now." He moved with swift efficiency, pulling a thick wool blanket from his saddlebag and wrapping it around her shoulders, then another around her legs. The blanket smelled of horse and campfire smoke, but Emma had never felt anything so wonderful. He lifted her as easily as if she weighed nothing and carried her to a small clearing just off the trail where a rocky overhang provided some shelter from the wind. "How long have you been out here?" he asked, as he set her down gently against the rock face and began gathering deadwood for a fire. 3 days, Emma said through chattering teeth. "Stagecoach accident, driver died. Other passengers went for help. I tried to follow the trail." His jaw tightened as he struck his flint, coaxing sparks into the dry tinder he had arranged. 3 days in this cold without proper gear. "You are lucky you can still move at all." The fire caught, small flames licking at the wood, and he carefully fed it until it blazed strong and steady. Emma stretched her hands toward the heat, wincing as feeling began to return to her fingers in painful prickles. The cowboy shrugged out of his coat and draped it over her shoulders on top of the blankets, leaving himself in just a wool shirt and vest. "You will freeze," Emma protested weakly. "I will be fine," he said, crouching beside her to check her fingers and toes for frostbite. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he examined each digit. "I have been through worse winters than this. You, though, need warmth fast." He pulled off her boots, revealing feet that were pale and waxy looking, and frowned. "This is not good." He rubbed her feet carefully, trying to restore circulation, and Emma bit her lip against the pain. After a few minutes, he wrapped them in a dry cloth and then in more blanket, positioning her closer to the fire. "What is your name?" he asked, reaching for his saddlebag and pulling out a tin cup and a flask. "Emma Thorne," she said. "From Philadelphia originally. I was traveling to Virginia City to teach school." He poured liquid from the flask into the cup and heated it carefully near the flames. "My name is Quinn Parker. I run cattle in the valleys around here, though I am heading to Verdi right now with supplies." He handed her the warmed cup. "Drink this slowly. It is whiskey mixed with water. It will help warm you from the inside." Emma took the cup with trembling hands and sipped. The liquid burned going down, but it spread warmth through her chest that the fire alone could not provide. "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I thought I was going to die on that trail." "You still might if we do not get you somewhere warm soon," Quinn said bluntly, though his eyes were kind. "The nearest shelter is Verdi, about 6 miles north of here. Can you ride?" Emma looked at the horse and then at her own shaking legs. "I do not know." "Then we will share the saddle and I will walk alongside," Quinn decided. "But first, you need to eat something." He pulled out a cloth bundle containing cold biscuits and dried beef. "Not much, but it will give you strength." Emma ate slowly, each bite an effort, while Quinn tended the fire and checked his horse. The animal was calm and well-trained, standing patiently despite the cold and wind. As Emma ate, she studied her rescuer. He moved with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in the wilderness, his actions economical and purposeful. His face was handsome beneath the beard, though weathered by sun and wind, and there was something solid about him, something trustworthy. "Why are you out here?" Emma asked. "In this weather?" "Sam Henderson in Verdi is expecting a delivery of medicine and supplies," Quinn explained, cinching his saddle. "His wife is due to have a baby any day now, and the midwife needs certain things. When a storm is coming, you do not wait for better weather, you just go." "That is very noble of you," Quinn shrugged. "It is just being a decent neighbor. Out here we look after each other. If we do not, nobody else will." He came back to her and crouched down. "How are you feeling? Any better?" "Warmer," Emma admitted. "Though my feet still hurt terribly. Pain is good. It means feeling is coming back." He studied her face. "Your color is better too. Another few minutes by the fire and then we need to move. This weather is only going to get worse." Emma nodded, pulling his coat and the blankets tighter around herself. The fire crackled cheerfully, defying the bitter cold around them. She watched Quinn as he moved around the small camp, extinguishing the fire safely and repacking his supplies. Every movement showed care and consideration, nothing wasted. When he came to help her stand, Emma's legs buckled, but Quinn caught her easily, one arm around her waist. "Steady now," he murmured. "I have got you." He lifted her onto his horse, settling her side saddle since she wore a dress beneath her coat, and wrapped the blankets securely around her. Then he climbed up behind her, positioning her so she leaned back against his chest, sheltered by his body from the wind. "Hold onto the saddle horn," he instructed, taking the reins. "I will make sure you do not fall." The horse started forward at a steady walk, Quinn's arm firm around Emma's waist to keep her secure. The warmth of his body against her back was a blessing, blocking the worst of the wind. Emma felt herself relaxing against him, exhaustion pulling at her now that she was no longer fighting alone for survival. "Stay awake," Quinn said, his voice rumbling through his chest against her back. "Talk to me. Tell me about Philadelphia." Emma forced her eyes open. "What do you want to know?" "Anything. Everything. What made you leave?" So Emma talked, her voice growing stronger as they rode. She told him about her father's shipping business that had collapsed when 3 vessels were lost at sea in a single storm, about the creditors who had descended like vultures, taking everything, about her mother's hasty remarriage to a dry goods merchant who had made it clear there was no room for grown daughters in his household, about her own determination to make something of herself, rather than accept charity from reluctant relatives. Teaching seemed like a respectable profession, Emma said, and the West needed teachers. The pay was good and it would give me independence. Independence is worth a lot, Quinn agreed, though it can be lonely too. Are you lonely? Emma asked, surprised by her own boldness. Quinn was quiet for a moment, guiding the horse around a fallen tree. Sometimes, he admitted. I have my ranch, my cattle, and my work. Good neighbors, too. But yes, sometimes I feel the loneliness of it. My parents died of fever 5 years ago, and my brother went back east to study law. It is just me now. I am sorry about your parents. Thank you. They were good people, taught me everything I know about ranching and about being a decent man. His arm tightened slightly around her waist as the horse navigated a steep section of trail. They would have liked you. My mother especially. She always said the world needed more women brave enough to forge their own paths. Emma smiled despite her exhaustion. I think I would have liked her too. They rode in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the crunch of snow under the horse's hooves and the whistle of wind through the trees. Emma felt herself drifting, lulled by the rhythm of the horse's gait and the warmth of Quinn's presence. Emma, Quinn said sharply, jostling her slightly. Stay awake. Talk to me more. Sorry, she mumbled. So tired. I know, but you need to stay conscious until we get you properly warm and checked over. Tell me about your teaching. What do you plan to teach the children of Virginia City? Emma roused herself with effort. Reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and geography. Maybe some poetry if I can convince them it is worthwhile. She shifted slightly, trying to ease the cramping in her cold legs. I have brought books with me. Dickens, Alcott, Whitman. The stage line will hopefully deliver my trunk to Virginia City once they sort out the accident. You will get there eventually, Quinn assured her. Once you are recovered, I will take you there myself if need be. It is only about 20 miles from Verdi, though the road can be rough in winter. You have already done so much, Emma protested. Not enough yet, you are still half frozen. His voice was firm. You will stay in Verdi until you are fully recovered. We have a boarding house run by Martha Wilson. She is a good woman, a widow who will look after you properly. Emma wanted to argue, to insist she could not impose, but the truth was she had no other options. Her meager savings were in her trunk, wherever that was, and she was in no condition to travel further. Thank you, she said quietly. I will repay your kindness somehow. No need, Quinn said simply. Like I said, out here we look after each other. The trail began to descend, winding down the mountainside toward the valley below. Through breaks in the trees, Emma could see smoke rising in the distance, marking the location of buildings. Is that Verdi? She asked. Yes, not much of a town, really. Maybe 50 people total, most of them working the railroad or running supply posts for the bigger towns nearby. But it has what we need right now, including a doctor. A doctor. I do not think I can afford. Doc Morrison will see you regardless, Quinn interrupted. He will bill me if necessary, but more likely he will just accept payment in eggs or firewood or whatever you can manage later. That is how things work in small towns. Emma felt tears prick her eyes, though whether from gratitude, exhaustion, or relief, she could not say. I do not know what I would have done if you had not found me. You would have died, Quinn said bluntly, but I did find you, so there is no point dwelling on what might have been. Focus on what is. You are alive, you are getting warmer, and in about 30 minutes you will be in a real bed with hot food in your belly. The practicality of his words steadied Emma. She nodded against his chest and forced herself to stay alert as they descended into the valley. The wind was less fierce here, blocked by the mountains, and the snow fell more gently, large flakes drifting down like feathers. Verdi appeared gradually, first as individual buildings scattered among the pines, then as a recognizable settlement clustered near the railroad tracks. Emma counted perhaps a dozen structures: a general store, a saloon, a stable, several houses, and what looked like a small church. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys, and lamplight glowed warmly in windows. Quinn guided the horse directly to a two-story building with a painted sign reading "Wilson's Boarding House." He dismounted first, then carefully lifted Emma down, supporting her when her legs threatened to give way. The front door opened before they reached it, and a plump woman in her 40s with graying hair and a kind face appeared. "Quinn Parker, what have you got there?" "Oh my lord, that poor girl looks half frozen." "She is more than half frozen, Martha," Quinn said. "Found her on the mountain trail. She has been out there 3 days since a stagecoach accident." Martha ushered them inside immediately, into a warm entryway that smelled of baking bread and wood smoke. "Get her by the fire in the parlor. I will fetch blankets and hot water. Has Doc seen her?" "Not yet." "I was planning to get her warm first, then fetch him." "Good thinking. Go on now, settle her in the parlor. I will be right there." Quinn carried Emma into a cozy room dominated by a large fireplace where flames danced merrily. He set her carefully in an armchair pulled close to the hearth and began unwrapping the blankets, checking her extremities again. "Fingers and toes are pink now, not white," he said with satisfaction. "That is a good sign." Martha bustled in with an armload of quilts and blankets, followed by a young woman carrying a basin of warm water. "This is my daughter, Lucy," Martha said. "Lucy, help me get this poor dear into dry clothes while Quinn fetches the doctor." Quinn stood reluctantly. "I should stay. You should do as you are told and get Doc Morrison," Martha said firmly but kindly. "We will take excellent care of her. Go on now." Quinn looked at Emma, his dark eyes concerned. "I will be back soon." "I know," Emma said, managing a small smile. "Thank you, Quinn, for everything." He nodded and left, and Emma heard the front door close behind him. Martha and Lucy immediately went to work, helping Emma out of her frozen, damp clothes with gentle efficiency and into a warm flannel nightgown. They wrapped her in quilts and settled her back in the chair. Then Martha knelt to bathe Emma's feet in warm water while Lucy brought hot tea sweetened with honey. "Drink this slowly, dear," Lucy said. She was perhaps 18, with her mother's warm brown eyes and a sweet smile. "It will help warm you from the inside." Emma sipped gratefully, feeling the warmth spread through her. "You are all so kind." "Nonsense," Martha said briskly, though her eyes were soft. "This is just what decent people do. Quinn said you were in a stagecoach accident." Emma explained again what had happened, her words coming easier now in the warmth and safety of the boarding house. Martha clicked her tongue sympathetically as she dried Emma's feet and wrapped them in soft wool socks. "You are very lucky Quinn found you when he did," Martha said. "Another few hours and you might have been beyond help. He is a good man, that Quinn Parker, one of the best I have known." "He seems very capable," Emma agreed. "Capable and good-hearted both," Lucy added. "Last winter he spent 2 weeks searching for the Anderson boy when he got lost in a storm. Found him too, alive and well, sheltering in a cave. He never accepts thanks or expects repayment. Just does what is right because that is who he is." Emma absorbed this information, filing it away. Quinn Parker was clearly well loved in this small community, and from what she had seen herself, he deserved that regard. The doctor arrived within 20 minutes, a lean older man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. He introduced himself as George Morrison and examined Emma thoroughly, checking her fingers and toes for frostbite, listening to her breathing, and asking detailed questions about her symptoms. "You are a very fortunate young woman," he said finally. No permanent damage that I can see, though you will have some pain and discomfort for a few days as full feeling returns. Your lungs sound clear, which is excellent news. I want you to rest, stay warm, eat well, and drink plenty of fluids. No traveling for at least a week, possibly 2. 2 weeks, Emma said in dismay. But I need to get to Virginia City. They are expecting me at the school. They will have to continue expecting you, Doc Morrison said firmly. If you try to travel before you are fully recovered, you risk relapse and serious illness. Pneumonia is nothing to trifle with, Miss Thorne, and you have pushed your body to its limits. Give it time to heal. Quinn, who had returned while the doctor was examining Emma, spoke from the doorway. I will send word to Virginia City explaining what happened. They will understand. Emma wanted to protest, but exhaustion was pulling at her again, and she knew the doctor and Quinn were right. She nodded reluctantly. Very well, though I do not know how I will pay for the room and board. We will work something out, Martha said comfortably. Do not worry about that now. What you need is sleep. Lucy had already prepared a room upstairs, and with Quinn's help, Emma was settled into a comfortable bed piled high with quilts. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Quinn's concerned face as he looked down at her. Rest now, he said quietly. You are safe. Emma woke to pale winter sunlight streaming through lace curtains and the smell of frying bacon. For a moment, she could not remember where she was. Then the events of the previous day came flooding back. She was in Verdi, in Martha Wilson's boarding house, rescued from the mountain trail by Quinn Parker. She sat up slowly, testing her body. Her muscles ached, and her feet and hands throbbed painfully, but she felt immeasurably better than she had yesterday. The room around her was simple but clean, with whitewashed walls, a braided rug on the wooden floor, and a small dresser with a pitcher and basin. Her dress and coat hung on a peg by the door, brushed clean and dry. A soft knock came at the door, and Lucy entered with a breakfast tray. Oh, good, you are awake. Mother was wondering whether to wake you or let you sleep. How do you feel? Sore and stiff, but much better, Emma said honestly. What time is it? Nearly 10 o'clock. You slept almost 14 hours. Lucy set the tray across Emma's lap. It held eggs, bacon, toast with butter and jam, and hot coffee. Mother says you are to eat everything and then rest some more. Emma's stomach growled at the sight and smell of the food, and she realized she was ravenous. Please thank your mother for me, and for the room. I will find a way to repay you both. Mother said you are welcome to help around the boarding house once you are feeling better if you want to work off your stay, Lucy said, settling into the chair by the window. But there is no rush. Quinn already paid for your first week. He did what? Emma nearly dropped her fork. But he has already done so much. That is just Quinn, Lucy said with a smile. He looks after people, always has. She tucked a strand of brown hair behind her ear. He stopped by early this morning to check on you before heading out to his ranch. Said he would be back tomorrow to see how you are doing. Emma felt a strange flutter in her chest at the thought of Quinn returning. She told herself it was simple gratitude, nothing more. The man had saved her life. Of course she felt warmly toward him. She spent the day resting, moving from the bed to the chair by the window and back again. Martha brought lunch and sat with her for a while, sharing stories about Verdi and its residents. Emma learned that the town had been established about 10 years earlier as a railroad stop, growing slowly as people settled in the fertile valley. Most residents were ranchers, railroad workers, or merchants serving the larger towns nearby. Quinn's ranch is about 5 miles north of here, Martha said. Not huge, but he runs a good operation. Mostly cattle, some horses. He works hard, that boy. Been on his own since his folks passed, but he has never let it make him bitter. Just keeps working and helping others when he can. He told me about his parents, Emma said. It must have been difficult losing them both at once. It was fever, Martha said sadly. Swept through here 6 years back and took a dozen people before it burned itself out. Quinn nursed them both, barely sleeping for 2 weeks, but there was nothing anyone could do. After they passed, he threw himself into the ranch, worked from dawn to dusk like a man possessed. I think it was the only way he knew to cope with the grief. Emma felt her heart ache for Quinn. She knew about loss herself, though her parents still lived. Sometimes distance and circumstance could be their own kind of death. The next day, Emma felt strong enough to come downstairs for breakfast. She dressed carefully in her gray wool dress, grateful that it had been cleaned and pressed. Her boots had been oiled and set by the fire to dry properly. Martha fussed over her, making sure she did not overexert herself, but Emma insisted on being useful. "If I am going to stay here, I need to earn my keep," she said firmly. "Doctor's orders be damned. I can at least help with light tasks." Martha laughed. "You have spirit, I will give you that. Very well, you can help Lucy with mending this afternoon if you are feeling up to it." Emma was sitting in the parlor with Lucy, working on a pile of mending when the front door opened and Quinn stepped inside, bringing a gust of cold air and snow with him. He pulled off his hat and coat, hanging them by the door, then came into the parlor. "Miss Thorne," he said, his weathered face breaking into a smile, "you are looking much better." "Thanks to you," Emma said, setting aside the shirt she had been mending. She felt unaccountably pleased to see him. "Please call me Emma. I think we can dispense with formality given that you saved my life and I slept leaning against your chest for 6 miles. A faint flush colored Quinn's cheeks beneath his beard. "Emma, then, and you should call me Quinn." "How is your ranch?" Emma asked. "Did the cattle weather the storm well?" "Well enough. I have a good foreman who looks after things when I am away." Quinn settled into a chair across from her. "I stopped by the telegraph office and sent word to Virginia City about your situation. They replied this morning saying they understand and will hold your position until you are well enough to travel." Relief flooded through Emma. "Thank you. That is one less thing to worry about." They talked easily, Quinn telling her about his ranch and the challenges of raising cattle in the Nevada mountains. Emma sharing more about her life in Philadelphia and her decision to come west. Lucy excused herself after a while to help her mother with dinner preparations, leaving them alone in the parlor. "I never properly thanked you," Emma said seriously. "Not really. You saved my life, Quinn, if you had not found me when you did." "But I did find you," Quinn interrupted gently. "And you are safe now. That is what matters. Still, I owe you my life. That is not a small debt." Quinn leaned forward, his dark eyes intent on hers. "You do not owe me anything, Emma. I did what any decent person would do, what I hope someone would do for me if I were in the same situation." "Not everyone would have stopped," Emma said quietly. "Not everyone would have given up their own coat and blanket in a snowstorm." "Then not everyone is worth knowing," Quinn said simply. Emma found herself smiling despite the seriousness of the conversation. There was something so fundamentally good about Quinn Parker, a bedrock decency that shone through in everything he said and did. She realized she wanted to know him better, to understand what made him the man he was. Over the following days, Quinn became a regular visitor to the boarding house. He would stop by in the mornings before heading to his ranch, or in the evenings after finishing his work. Sometimes he brought small gifts, fresh eggs from his chickens, a haunch of venison from a successful hunt, once a book of poetry he thought Emma might enjoy. Emma found herself looking forward to his visits more than she wanted to admit. They would sit together in the parlor or, on milder days, on the boarding house porch, talking about everything and nothing. Quinn told her about learning to ranch from his father, About the year he spent working cattle drives to Texas before returning to Nevada. Emma shared stories of her childhood in Philadelphia, of her love for reading and learning, of her dreams for her future students. "I want to give them opportunities," she said one afternoon as they sat on the porch watching snow fall. "So many children out here never have the chance to learn properly. If I can teach them to read and write, to think critically, maybe they can build better lives for themselves." "That is a good goal," Quinn said. "Important work. What about you?" Emma asked. "What are your dreams for the future?" Quinn was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. "I want to build something lasting," he said finally. "Not just a ranch, but a legacy. Something that will endure after I am gone. I want to raise the best cattle in Nevada, to treat my land and my animals with respect, and someday—" He paused, seeming almost shy. "Someday I would like to have a family to share it with. A wife, children, a full house instead of an empty one." Emma's heart beat faster. "That sounds wonderful." Quinn turned to look at her, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "It does it not?" They sat in charged silence for a moment before Martha called from inside that dinner was ready, breaking the spell. But as they went inside together, Emma was acutely aware of Quinn's hand on her back, guiding her gently through the door. A week after her rescue, Emma was feeling nearly back to normal. The pain in her extremities had faded to occasional tingles, and her strength had returned. Doc Morrison pronounced her recovered enough to resume normal activities, though he still recommended she wait another week before attempting the journey to Virginia City. "The roads are bad right now anyway," he said. "Give them time to clear, and give yourself time to regain your full strength." Emma did not mind the delay as much as she thought she would. Virginia City could wait. Right now, she was content in Verdi, helping Martha and Lucy with the boarding house, spending time with Quinn, and getting to know the small community. The residents of Verdi were welcoming and kind. Emma met Sam Henderson and his wife Alice, who had successfully delivered a healthy baby boy with the help of the medicine Quinn had delivered. She met the shopkeeper, the blacksmith, the railroad workers who boarded at Martha's house. Everyone had a story, a reason they had come to this small town in the Nevada mountains, and Emma found herself fascinated by their resilience and determination. But it was Quinn who occupied most of her thoughts. She found herself watching for him throughout the day, listening for his footsteps on the porch. When he appeared, her whole being seemed to light up. They had fallen into an easy companionship that felt both comfortable and charged with something deeper. 2 weeks after her rescue, on a clear, cold evening when the stars blazed overhead like diamonds, Quinn asked Emma if she would like to see his ranch. "It is not much," he said almost apologetically. "Just a simple house and some outbuildings, but I would like to show it to you." "I would love to see it," Emma said honestly. The next day dawned clear and bright, perfect for traveling. Quinn arrived mid-morning with a small sleigh pulled by his bay horse. He had piled the sleigh with blankets and had brought a heated stone wrapped in cloth to keep Emma's feet warm. "Ready?" he asked, offering his hand to help her into the sleigh. "Ready," Emma confirmed, settling beside him. The ride to Quinn's ranch was beautiful. The road wound through snow-covered meadows and groves of pine, with the mountains rising majestically on all sides. Quinn pointed out landmarks and told her about the land, the history of the valley, the wildlife that lived here. Emma listened, enchanted not just by his words but by the way his face lit up when he talked about this place he clearly loved. The ranch appeared gradually, nestled in a small valley with a frozen creek running through it. The house was modest but well built, a sturdy log structure with a stone chimney and a wide porch. Nearby stood a barn, a stable, and several other outbuildings. Fences marked off pastures where cattle grazed, their breath steaming in the cold air. "It is beautiful," Emma said sincerely. "You have built something wonderful here, Quinn." Quinn smiled, pleasure evident in his eyes. "Come inside, I will show you the house." The interior of the house was simple but comfortable. The main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a large fireplace, a sturdy table, and several chairs. A doorway led to a bedroom at the back, and a ladder climbed to a loft overhead. Everything was clean and well-maintained, if somewhat Spartan. "It is quiet," Quinn said, almost apologetically. "I do not have much in the way of decorations or comforts. I spend most of my time working, and when I am inside I am usually just eating or sleeping." "It is a good house," Emma said, running her hand along the smooth wood of the table. "Solid, built to last." She looked at him. "Like you." Quinn stepped closer, and Emma's heart began to race. They were alone, truly alone for the first time since he had found her on the mountain trail. The air between them felt electric. "Emma," Quinn said quietly, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "When I found you on that trail, half frozen and barely conscious, something changed in me. I thought I was just helping someone in need, doing what was right. But as I got to know you over these past weeks, I realized it was more than that." He took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle. "You are intelligent and brave and kind. You have a good heart and a sharp mind. You make me laugh and you make me think. And I—" He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "I have fallen in love with you." Emma's breath caught. She had hoped, had wondered, had felt her own feelings growing deeper with each passing day, but hearing the words spoken aloud made everything suddenly, brilliantly real. "Quinn," she whispered. "You do not have to say anything," he said quickly. "I know you have plans, a teaching position waiting in Virginia City. I know you barely know me, and I do not want to pressure you. I just needed you to know how I feel." "Quinn," Emma said again, more firmly this time. She reached up and cupped his bearded face in her hands. "You wonderful, foolish man, I have fallen in love with you too." The joy that blazed across his face was almost blinding. "You have?" "Yes," Emma laughed. "How could I not? You are the finest man I have ever known. You are kind and strong and good. You make me feel safe and valued and seen. When I am with you, I feel like I am exactly where I am supposed to be." Quinn pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Emma melted into his embrace, feeling his heart pounding against her chest. They stood like that for a long moment, simply holding each other, both almost overwhelmed by the force of their feelings. Then Quinn pulled back just enough to look down at her, his dark eyes searching her face. "What about Virginia City? The teaching position?" Emma had been thinking about this for days now, turning it over in her mind. "I can teach anywhere," she said slowly. "There are children in Verdi who need education just as much as those in Virginia City. Martha told me there is no school here, that families either teach their own children or send them away to board in larger towns. Maybe I could start a school here instead." "Could you be happy here?" Quinn asked seriously. "It is a small town, Emma, isolated, especially in winter. Very different from Philadelphia." "I did not come west looking for another Philadelphia," Emma said. "I came looking for a new life, a fresh start, and I have found more than I ever imagined." She smiled up at him. "I have found home." Quinn kissed her then, a gentle, reverent kiss that spoke of love and promise and hope for the future. Emma kissed him back, her arms around his neck, and felt as if every frozen, desperate step on that mountain trail had been leading her here, to this moment, to this man. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Quinn rested his forehead against hers. "I do not have much to offer you," he said. "Just this ranch, this simple life, and my heart." "That is more than enough," Emma assured him. "That is everything." They spent the rest of the day at the ranch, Quinn showing Emma around properly, introducing her to his foreman Marcus and the handful of ranch hands who worked for him. Emma asked questions about everything, genuinely interested in the workings of the ranch, and Quinn was delighted to explain. She met the cattle, the horses, the chickens. She stood in the barn and breathed in the smell of hay and animals. She walked through the snowy pastures with Quinn and looked at the mountains surrounding them. "I could be happy here," she said, and meant it with her whole heart. As they rode back to Verde in the late afternoon, the sleigh gliding smoothly over the packed snow, Emma leaned against Quinn's shoulder. "When should we tell people?" she asked. "Tell them what?" Quinn teased, though his eyes were warm. "That we are courting, I suppose. That we intend to marry if you were planning to ask properly." "Were you planning to say yes if I did ask properly?" Quinn countered. "I might," Emma said primly, then laughed. "Yes, you impossible man. Yes, I will marry you." Quinn grinned and kissed the top of her head. "Then we should probably tell people soon. I would like to make this official." They announced their engagement that evening at dinner in the boarding house. Martha cried happy tears and hugged them both. Lucy clapped her hands in delight. The railroad workers who boarded there shook Quinn's hand and congratulated Emma. Within hours, word had spread through the small town, and neighbors began stopping by with congratulations and good wishes. "I knew it," Martha said, beaming. "The moment Quinn brought you in half frozen and looking at you like you were precious cargo, I knew there was something special there." Doc Morrison stopped by to offer his congratulations and to speak with Emma privately. "Are you certain about this?" he asked gently. "You have only known him a few weeks." "I am certain," Emma said firmly. "I know it seems fast, but when something is right, you know it. Quinn is a good man and I love him." The doctor smiled. "He is indeed a good man, one of the best, and I can see he loves you deeply. I just wanted to make sure you were not feeling pressured or obligated because he saved your life." "I am not," Emma assured him. "My feelings for Quinn have nothing to do with obligation and everything to do with who he is as a person." "Then I am very happy for you both," Doc Morrison said warmly. The next few weeks passed in a blur of planning and preparation. Emma wrote to her mother in Philadelphia, explaining what had happened and announcing her engagement. She was not sure what response she would receive, given that her mother had never approved of Emma's decision to go west, but she felt it was important to share the news. Meanwhile, Emma began laying the groundwork for establishing a school in Verde. She spoke with the parents in town, gauging interest and assessing needs. The response was enthusiastic. Nearly every family had children who needed education, and many were struggling to teach them adequately at home while also managing farms, ranches, and businesses. "We could use the church building," the minister suggested. "We only hold services on Sundays. The rest of the week it stands empty. You would be welcome to use it as a schoolhouse." Emma inspected the building and found it perfect for her needs. It was small but sturdy, with good light from the windows and enough space for desks and a chalkboard. With some basic supplies and books, which could be ordered from larger towns, she could start teaching within a month or two. Quinn was supportive and proud, helping her plan and offering to build desks and shelves himself. "My father was a fair hand at carpentry," he said. "He taught me the basics. I can make whatever you need." They set a wedding date for early March, giving them time to prepare and to let the worst of the winter weather pass. Emma had no family to invite, but Quinn's brother William was coming from San Francisco, where he was practicing law. The whole town of Verde would be invited, as was customary in small communities. Martha and Lucy helped Emma make a wedding dress, working from a simple pattern but adding special touches. The fabric was cream-colored wool, practical but pretty, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Emma had never been one for frivolous clothes, but she wanted to look beautiful for Quinn on their wedding day. In mid-February, a package arrived for Emma from Philadelphia. Inside was a letter from her mother and a beautiful pearl necklace that had belonged to Emma's grandmother. "My dear Emma," the letter read, "your news was certainly a surprise. I will not pretend I am not concerned about you marrying so quickly to a man you barely know in a place so far from home. However, I trust your judgment. You have always been the most sensible of my daughters. If you say this man is good and that you love him, I believe you. The necklace was your grandmother's, given to her by your grandfather on their wedding day. She would have wanted you to have it. Be happy, my dear girl. That is all any mother can wish for her children." Emma cried when she read the letter, grateful for her mother's blessing even if it came with reservations. She immediately wrote back, describing Quinn and Verdi in detail, trying to convey why she felt so certain about her choice. As the wedding day approached, Emma found herself growing more excited rather than nervous. She was ready to start this new chapter of her life. She was ready to be Quinn's wife, to build a life together on his ranch, to teach the children of Verdi. The night before the wedding, Martha hosted a small dinner at the boarding house for Emma, Quinn, and Quinn's brother William, who had arrived that afternoon. William was younger than Quinn by 3 years, tall and lean with the same dark eyes but without the weathering that came from years of outdoor work. "I am glad to meet you, Emma," William said warmly. "My brother's letters have been full of you. He is clearly besotted." "As he should be," Emma said, smiling at Quinn. "I am rather wonderful." Everyone laughed, and the evening passed pleasantly. William told stories of San Francisco and his work as a lawyer. Quinn shared anecdotes about life on the ranch. Emma talked about her plans for the school. It felt right and natural, sitting together like this, like family. Later, after William had retired to his room and Lucy had gone to bed, Emma and Quinn sat together on the porch despite the cold. Quinn had wrapped his coat around Emma's shoulders and they sat close together on the bench, watching the stars. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Quinn asked. "Not even a little," Emma said honestly. "I am excited. I cannot wait to be your wife." Quinn took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I never thought I would find this," he said quietly. "After my parents died, I convinced myself I was fine alone, that I did not need anyone, but I was wrong. I needed you, Emma. I just did not know it until I found you freezing on that mountain trail. Maybe that is why everything happened the way it did," Emma mused. "The stagecoach accident, getting lost, wandering for days. Maybe it was all leading me to you." "I am glad it did," Quinn said. "Even though I hate that you suffered, I cannot regret that it brought you to me." "Neither can I," Emma agreed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while longer, simply being together, before Emma reluctantly said she should go to bed. Quinn walked her to the door and kissed her gently. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will be my wife." "Tomorrow," Emma echoed, smiling. "I can hardly wait." The wedding day dawned clear and bright, with pale blue skies and glittering snow. Emma woke early, too excited to sleep, and found Martha and Lucy already up and preparing breakfast. "The bride should not be doing chores on her wedding day," Martha scolded gently, shooing Emma away from the kitchen. "Go upstairs and start getting ready. Lucy and I will bring everything you need." Emma allowed herself to be fussed over, grateful for the care and affection these two women showed her. They had become like family over the past months, and she knew she would treasure their friendship for years to come. Lucy helped Emma bathe and wash her hair, then styled it in an elegant updo with small white flowers woven through. Martha carefully pressed the wedding dress and helped Emma into it, fastening the many tiny buttons up the back. Emma put on her grandmother's pearl necklace, and Martha pinned a simple veil to her hair. "Oh, Emma," Lucy breathed. "You are so beautiful." Emma looked at herself in the small mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked happy and radiant, her eyes bright with joy and anticipation. This was really happening. She was getting married today. The ceremony was held in the church at noon, with the whole town in attendance. Emma walked down the short aisle alone, having no father or brother to give her away, but she did not feel alone. The faces around her were friendly and welcoming, and at the front of the church stood Quinn, looking handsome in a dark suit, his eyes locked on her with such love and admiration that Emma felt her heart might burst. The minister performed a simple ceremony, speaking of love and commitment, of partnership and faith. Emma and Quinn exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to love and support each other through all the challenges life might bring. When the minister finally pronounced them husband and wife, Quinn kissed Emma with such tenderness that several women in the congregation openly cried. The celebration afterward was held in the saloon, which had been cleaned and decorated for the occasion. Tables groaned under the weight of food brought by neighbors, roasted meats, fresh bread, pies, cakes, and more. Someone had a fiddle, someone else a harmonica, and soon music filled the air. Emma danced with Quinn, with William, with many of the men from town. She laughed and talked with the women, receiving advice and good wishes. "You are a lucky woman," Alice Henderson said, bouncing her baby son on her hip. "Quinn Parker is 1 in a million." "I know," Emma said, watching her new husband across the room. "I am very blessed." As evening fell, Quinn and Emma said their goodbyes and climbed into the sleigh for the ride to the ranch. Someone had tied tin cans to the back, which rattled merrily as they set off, and the whole town stood outside the saloon waving and cheering. The ranch house had been prepared for their arrival. Marcus, Quinn's foreman, had made sure the fire was blazing and lamps were lit. A simple supper had been left warming by the hearth. Flowers, laboriously cultivated in a makeshift greenhouse, sat in a vase on the table. "Welcome home, Mrs. Parker," Quinn said, helping Emma down from the sleigh. "Mrs. Parker," Emma repeated, testing the name. "I like the sound of that." Quinn carried her over the threshold despite her laughing protests, setting her down gently in the main room. Then he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her deeply. "I love you," he said. "I will love you for the rest of my life and beyond." "And I love you," Emma replied. "Thank you for finding me on that trail. Thank you for sharing your blanket and your name. Thank you for showing me what love truly is." That night, as they lay together in the darkness with the fire burning low, Emma reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here, the stagecoach accident that could have killed her, the desperate days wandering alone in the cold. The moment Quinn had appeared like an answer to a prayer she had not known to pray. Every step, every hardship, every frozen, painful moment had led her to this man, this place, this life. "What are you thinking?" Quinn murmured, his hand gentle on her hair. "That I am exactly where I am meant to be," Emma said softly. "So am I," Quinn replied, pulling her closer. "So am I." The winter gradually gave way to spring, and Emma's new life unfolded with a richness she had never anticipated. The school opened in April, with 12 students ranging in age from 6 to 14. Emma taught them reading, writing, mathematics, history, and geography, using the books she had brought from Philadelphia along with materials donated by families in town. The children were eager to learn, their minds hungry for knowledge, and Emma found teaching deeply fulfilling. Quinn was supportive in every way, building proper desks and shelves for the schoolroom, helping Emma plan lessons, and taking pride in her accomplishments. In the evenings, after Emma returned from teaching and Quinn from working the ranch, they would sit together and share their days. Emma would tell him about her students' progress, and Quinn would describe challenges with the cattle or plans for expanding the ranch. They fell into a comfortable rhythm of daily life. Emma learned to manage the ranch house, though she had little experience with such things initially. Martha was a patient teacher, showing her how to cook hearty meals, how to preserve food for winter, how to manage household tasks efficiently. Quinn was patient too, never critical when Emma burned dinner or forgot to collect the eggs from the chickens. "We are learning together," he would say with a smile. "I am not exactly expert at being a husband either," but he was wrong about that. Quinn was a wonderful husband, attentive and affectionate, always making sure Emma felt loved and valued. He brought her wildflowers from the meadows. He surprised her with a new book ordered specially from San Francisco. He listened when she talked about her students or her homesickness for Philadelphia. He held her when she cried, missing her sisters and mother. He celebrated with her when the first letter arrived from her mother with news of the family. By summer, Emma was fully integrated into life in Verdi. She had close friendships with Martha, Lucy, Alice Henderson, and several other women in town. She was respected as the school teacher, sought out for advice on education and sometimes other matters. She felt needed and valued in a way she never had in Philadelphia. The ranch thrived under Quinn's careful management. The cattle multiplied, the pastures were green and lush, and Quinn was able to hire 2 more ranch hands to help with the growing herd. Emma loved watching him work, admiring his strength and skill, the way he treated animals with respect and care. In August, Emma began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited until she was certain before telling Quinn, wanting to be sure. When Doc Morrison confirmed it, Emma could barely contain her excitement. She told Quinn that evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I have news," she said, unable to keep the smile from her face. Quinn looked at her and understanding dawned in his eyes. "Emma, are you?" "Yes," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her still flat belly. "We are going to have a baby. In late winter, Doc Morrison thinks." Quinn whooped with joy and picked Emma up, spinning her around despite her laughing protests to be careful. He set her down gently and kissed her thoroughly. "A baby," he said in wonder. "We are going to be parents." "Are you happy?" Emma asked, though she could see the answer in his face. "Happy does not begin to describe it," Quinn said. "Emma, you have given me everything. A wife I love, a full house, and now a child. I am the luckiest man alive." The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Emma continued teaching through the fall, though she had to sit down more frequently and take breaks. The children and their parents were understanding and excited about the upcoming birth. Martha and the other women gave advice and shared their own experiences. Quinn was attentive to the point of being overprotective, constantly worrying that Emma was doing too much. "I am pregnant, not dying," Emma would tease him. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time." "But this is my baby," Quinn would say stubbornly, "and my wife. I am allowed to worry." Emma closed the school in January as her due date approached, wanting to rest and prepare for the baby's arrival. Martha and Lucy came to the ranch frequently, bringing food and helping Emma get the nursery ready. Quinn had built a beautiful cradle, carved with intricate designs, and Emma had sewn tiny clothes and blankets. The baby arrived on a snowy night in late February, almost exactly 1 year after Emma's rescue on the mountain trail. The labor was long and difficult, but Doc Morrison and Martha guided Emma through it with skill and compassion. Quinn paced outside the bedroom for hours, nearly wearing a path in the floor until finally Martha opened the door. "You have a son," she said, smiling. "A healthy boy." "And Emma is fine, just exhausted." Quinn rushed into the room and found Emma propped up in bed, looking tired but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked up at him with such love and joy that Quinn felt tears sting his eyes. "Meet your son," Emma said softly. Quinn carefully took the baby, cradling him gently. The infant had dark hair and Emma's delicate features. He was perfect, tiny and fragile, and absolutely miraculous. "He is beautiful," Quinn whispered. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names but never quite decided. Now, looking at their son, Emma said, "I was thinking Thomas Parker, after your father." Quinn looked at her in surprise, touched beyond words. "Are you certain?" "Very certain," Emma said. "Your father would be proud of the man you have become, Quinn. I think he would be honored to have his grandson carry his name." "Thomas it is, then," Quinn agreed, his voice thick with emotion. Baby Thomas was a good child, healthy and relatively calm. Emma recovered quickly from the birth and was soon back to her normal activities, though now with the added joy and challenge of caring for an infant. Teaching the school became more complicated with a baby, but Martha offered to watch Thomas during school hours, and Emma gratefully accepted. Life settled into a new rhythm, busy and full but deeply satisfying. Emma and Quinn marveled at every milestone. Thomas's first smile, his first laugh, the day he rolled over by himself. They took him to church on Sundays, where the whole community made a fuss over him. They walked with him around the ranch, showing him the cattle and horses and chickens, even though he was too young to understand. "He will grow up knowing this land," Quinn said one spring afternoon as they walked through a meadow carpeted with wildflowers, Thomas sleeping against Quinn's shoulder. "He will learn to ranch, to work hard, to respect the earth and animals. And to read and write and think," Emma added, "to be educated and thoughtful." "He will have both," Quinn agreed, "the best of both our worlds." As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, Emma and Quinn's love deepened and matured. They had their disagreements, as all couples do, usually about minor things like whether Thomas was old enough for certain activities or how to handle discipline. But they always worked through their differences with respect and communication, never going to bed angry. 2 years after Thomas was born, Emma gave birth to twin daughters, Sarah and Ruth. The pregnancy had been more difficult than with Thomas, and the birth was challenging with 2 babies, but both girls were healthy and strong. Quinn was overjoyed to have daughters, and he proved to be a gentle, devoted father to them. The ranch house, once so empty and quiet, now rang with the sounds of children laughing and playing. Emma had to give up teaching for a few years to focus on the babies, but she continued to tutor older students privately and planned to reopen the school once the twins were older. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters when supplies ran low and everyone had to ration carefully. There were droughts that threatened the cattle and required creative water management. There were illnesses and injuries, the normal challenges of frontier life. But Emma and Quinn faced everything together, supporting each other through difficulties and celebrating triumphs together. As the years passed, their family continued to grow. After the twins came another son, whom they named William after Quinn's brother, then another daughter named Margaret. 5 children filled the ranch house with noise and chaos and love. Quinn expanded the house, adding rooms and a proper second story to accommodate the growing family. Emma eventually returned to teaching, working with older students while Martha helped watch the younger children. The school in Verde grew, and Emma gained a reputation as an excellent teacher. Some of her students went on to attend university in California or even back east, carrying with them the foundation Emma had given them. Quinn's ranch prospered and became one of the most successful in the region. He was known for his integrity and fair dealing, and young men sought positions working for him, knowing they would be treated well and learn valuable skills. Quinn took several young men under his wing over the years, teaching them ranching the way his father had taught him. Verde itself grew slowly but steadily. More families settled in the area, drawn by the railroad and the rich grazing land. The town added a proper general store, a second church, and eventually even a small newspaper. Emma and Quinn were pillars of the community, respected and loved by their neighbors. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Quinn surprised Emma with a trip to San Francisco. They left the children with Martha and William, who had married and moved back to Verde to practice law, and took the train to the city. It was Emma's first time seeing San Francisco, and Quinn delighted in showing her the sights, the harbor with its ships, the grand buildings, the restaurants and theaters. "This is wonderful," Emma said as they walked along the waterfront, "but I cannot wait to get back to Verde." "Really?" Quinn asked, surprised. "You do not miss city life, not even a little," Emma said honestly. "Everything I love is in Verde. You, our children, our friends, our life. I would not trade it for anything." Quinn pulled her close and kissed her. "I love you, Emma Parker." "And I love you, Quinn Parker," Emma replied. They stood there on the waterfront, wrapped in each other's arms, and Emma thought back to that frozen girl on the mountain trail 10 years ago. That girl had been lost and alone and frightened. She had thought she was going to die. But instead, she had found life, real abundant life, beyond anything she had imagined. The years continued to unfold, bringing both joys and sorrows. Quinn's brother William died suddenly of a heart attack when he was only 45, leaving a wife and 3 children. Quinn and Emma took the family in, supporting them through their grief and helping them rebuild their lives. 2 of the children eventually went back east for schooling, but one stayed and learned ranching from Quinn. Emma's mother passed away peacefully in her sleep at 72. Emma traveled back to Philadelphia for the funeral and was reunited with her sisters, all of whom had married and had families of their own. It was bittersweet, seeing how different their lives had become, but Emma felt no regret. She had chosen her path, and it had led to happiness. Thomas grew into a strong, capable young man who loved ranching as much as his father did. He married a sweet girl from a neighboring ranch when he was 23, and Quinn helped him establish his own place on a section of the Parker land. The twins, Sarah and Ruth, both became teachers like their mother, though Sarah eventually married and moved to Carson City while Ruth stayed in Verde. William, the second son, had his uncle's interest in law and went to San Francisco to study. Margaret, the youngest, showed a talent for music and spent her childhood learning piano and voice. As Quinn and Emma entered their 40s and then 50s, they watched their children grow and thrive, and they began to welcome grandchildren. Thomas and his wife had 4 children. Sarah had 3. Ruth had 2 before deciding teaching fulfilled her sufficiently without adding motherhood. William married and had twins. Margaret eventually married a music teacher and had 1 daughter. The ranch house was often full of grandchildren, their laughter echoing through the rooms. Quinn built a swing in the big oak tree near the house and spent hours pushing grandchildren, just as he had once pushed his own children. Emma taught the grandchildren their letters and numbers, continuing her life's work of education even in her later years. On a clear summer evening when Emma was 60 and Quinn 63, they sat together on the porch as they had so many times before. Their hair was gray now, their faces lined with age, but their love was as strong as ever. They held hands and watched the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. "You remember the night I found you?" Quinn asked quietly. "Every detail," Emma said. "I remember thinking I was going to die. I remember seeing you appear through the snow like an angel." I remember you wrapping me in your blanket and saying you had got me." "I did have you," Quinn said, "and I never let go." "No, you never did," Emma agreed, squeezing his hand. "You saved my life that night, Quinn, not just from freezing to death, but in every way that matters. You gave me love, family, purpose, home. You gave me everything." "We gave each other everything," Quinn corrected gently. "You saved me too, Emma. I was so lonely before you, so empty. I did not even realize how much I needed someone until I found you. You filled my life with joy and meaning." Emma leaned her head on his shoulder, comfortable and content. "We have had a good life, have we not? The best life," Quinn confirmed. "Better than I ever imagined possible." They sat in peaceful silence as the stars began to appear one by one in the darkening sky. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of Margaret helping prepare dinner, her daughter singing softly. Tomorrow, Thomas would bring his family over for Sunday lunch. Next week, William was coming from San Francisco for a visit. Life continued, rich and full and blessed. "I would do it all again," Emma said softly. "Every bit of it. Even the stagecoach accident and the freezing trail, because it led me to you." "And I would find you again," Quinn said. "Every time, in every life, I would always stop, always share my blanket, always bring you home." Emma turned her face up to his, and Quinn kissed her gently, a kiss that held decades of love and partnership and shared dreams. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "Come on," Emma said, standing and offering Quinn her hand. "Let us go inside. Our family is waiting." Quinn took her hand and rose, and together they walked into their home, their house that had once been empty but was now overflowing with the family they had built together. The door closed behind them, but through the windows, light and warmth and laughter spilled out into the Nevada night. And somewhere high in the mountains, snow was falling on the trail where a freezing girl had once stumbled, where a kind cowboy had once stopped to help, where two souls had found each other against all odds. The trail was empty now, wind whistling through the pines, stars blazing overhead. But it did not matter that it was empty, because the people it had brought together had built something lasting and true. Emma and Quinn Parker lived out their days in Verdi, surrounded by children and grandchildren and eventually great-grandchildren. They died within months of each other, both in their 80s, having lived long, full lives filled with love and purpose. At their funerals, the church was packed with people whose lives they had touched, whose children and grandchildren they had taught, who remembered them as pillars of the community and examples of what marriage and partnership could be. Their headstones stood side by side in the cemetery on the hill overlooking Verdi, the town they had helped build. The inscriptions were simple. For Quinn, a good man who lived well and loved deeply. For Emma, teacher, mother, friend, beloved wife. But between the two stones, their children had added a small plaque with words that told the real story. She was freezing on the trail. He shared his blanket and his name. From that moment of kindness grew a love that endured forever, and a family that will carry their legacy forward through generations. May we all be so blessed. And in Verdi, Nevada, in the houses and ranches scattered through the valley, the descendants of Emma and Quinn Parker continue to live and work and love, carrying forward the values their ancestors had embodied. Kindness, hard work, integrity, and above all, the courage to help a stranger in need and the wisdom to recognize love when it appeared, even in the most unexpected circumstances. The trail in the mountains remained, winding through the pines, traveled by new generations who never knew the story of the freezing girl and the cowboy who saved her. But the legacy of that encounter rippled forward through time, in every child who learned to read because Emma had started a school, in every rancher who prospered because Quinn had shown them how to work the land with integrity, in every act of kindness shown by their descendants who had learned from their example that helping others was not just right, but essential. And sometimes, on winter nights when snow fell softly on the mountains and the wind whispered through the pines, it seemed as if you could still hear the echo of that long-ago moment. The crunch of hooves in snow, a gentle voice saying, "I have got you," the rustle of a blanket being shared, the first tentative words exchanged between two strangers who would become so much more. In the end, what Emma and Quinn proved was simple but profound. That sometimes the hardest moments of our lives are doorways to the greatest blessings, that kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond the initial act, and that love, when built on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine caring, can weather any storm and create something that endures long after we are gone. Their story became legend in Verdi, passed down through generations as an example of what could happen when people chose compassion over indifference, when they took the time to help even when it was inconvenient, when they opened their hearts to possibility. Parents told it to children at bedtime. Teachers used it as an example in lessons about kindness and community. Young couples starting their own lives together looked to Emma and Quinn's partnership as a model of what marriage could be. And through it all, the mountains stood eternal, the same peaks that had nearly claimed Emma's life, but instead had brought her to her destiny. The snows came and melted, marking the passage of years and decades and generations. The town of Verdi grew and changed, but at its heart remained the values that Emma and Quinn had exemplified: community, education, hard work, and love. In the Parker family home, now inhabited by Thomas's grandson and his young family, the original blanket that Quinn had wrapped around Emma on that frozen trail so long ago was carefully preserved in a cedar chest. It was brought out occasionally for family gatherings, treated with reverence as a tangible link to the ancestors who had started it all. The children would run their fingers over the worn wool, marveling that something so simple had played such an important role in their family history. Great-great-grandfather Quinn wrapped this around great-great-grandmother Emma when he found her freezing to death, parents would explain. This blanket saved her life, and because he saved her life, all of us are here today. It was a lesson in the importance of small acts of kindness, in how a single moment of compassion could change not just one life but countless lives extending forward through time. It was a reminder that we are all connected, that our actions matter more than we might realize, that choosing to help rather than pass by can alter the course of history in ways we cannot begin to imagine. And so the story of Emma Thorne and Quinn Parker lived on, not just as history but as living truth, embodied in their descendants, in the institutions they had founded, in the values they had instilled, in the community they had helped build. They had started with nothing but a freezing girl, a compassionate cowboy, and a shared blanket. From that simple beginning, they had built an empire of love and family and purpose that would endure for generations. It was, in the end, exactly what Quinn had once told Emma he wanted: something lasting, a legacy that would endure after they were gone. They had built it together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice, always with love as the foundation. And in doing so, they had proven that the best things in life often come from the most unexpected beginnings, that hope can be found in the darkest moments, and that love, when given freely and nurtured carefully, can truly last forever.